Well, Sakey days, we are now live to chat with the docs. This is the weekly broadcast from the Siloam Center of Traditional and Integrative Medicine here in Janesville, Wisconsin. We are your source on YouTube for all things alternative medicine, medicine in general, and whatever else you guys want answered in your questions. Most of our questions come in via email. When folks email us, info@siloamcenter.com. Some of them come in through our Facebook channels and our YouTube channels and other channels. We're yet to get one coming in by carrier pigeon. But if you would like to be the first to get your question in via carrier pigeon, feel free. This week, you'll notice that chair is empty. Dr. Noel will be with us shortly. She's finishing up with a patient. It's one of the beautiful things about the Siloam Center here is the practitioners here actually take their time with patients, even if it means cutting in on what would normally be considered essential tasking, such as this. No, patients come first. If you would like to be part of the show, give us a call at 608-314-8791. 608-314-8791. Carrie is out there willing and waiting to answer your calls. If you have any questions for us here at Chat with the Docs. Before we get too far into anything, I want to do the news. I would like to do the news. This is last week's conundrum. See, it's sealed. This week, in fact, I just saw it today, and I printed it up from Law Enforcement Today. I just gotta say thank you to the U.S. Marshal's Office and to all of the other offices that were involved in Operation Autumn Hope in Ohio. You're not going to see this on the nightly news. You're not going to see this other places. And so I know we're a medical program, but I got to shout out to you guys and gals of the U.S. Marshal's Office and the FBI and these other groups that were involved. 45 missing kids were recovered in Ohio by the U.S. Marshal's Office as part of an October operation called Autumn Hope. The operation involved over 50 law enforcement agencies and non-government partners, making it the largest statewide anti-human trafficking operation in Ohio's history. It's about time. Thank you. During the month-long operation, 109 human trafficking victims were found. Wow. And referred for social services. U.S. Marshals were able to close 76 missing child cases and physically recover 45 children during that operation. Can you imagine the families? 45 families had their children recovered. Oh, praise God. So I just want to say from the bottom of my heart to the Marshal's Office, to it looks like the Columbus PD was involved. It looks like some of these other local groups were involved. I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. You guys are blessed. May God put a blessing on your head. Thank you. And so that's the news. That was the thing in the news that I thought I had to share with you guys. There's so much out there that is heavy and negative, and my goodness, we got to have some good news. And I can't think of anything better than 45 children recovered and 100 plus survivors being identified and referred for care. Doesn't get better than that. So this week, This week, until somebody calls in, we're going to continue going off of or you can even, do the live chat thing. This week, we're going to go off of the questions that were emailed to us. And we're going to start with Renee in Lowell, It's not quite the same without Dr. Noel here, is it? Lowell, Massachusetts. She writes, my thyroid hasn't been working right. This is beginning to sound familiar already. I hear this a lot. My doctor wants to put me on thyroid meds. I want to try to supplement first, and I am told that I should take a glandular for my thyroid. What is a glandular, and is that going to work? Okay, great question. When you get into the alternative realm, that's one of the first things that usually gets recommended is a, quote, glandular. But first, we got to ask the question, what tests were done to determine that your thyroid is hypofunctioning? What clinical data are they working from to make that diagnosis? Might not be a bad idea to get a second opinion. Lastly, what is a glandular? A glandular is where they'll take desiccated thyroid gland from an animal, usually cow, sometimes pigs, and they will put that with some other supplements and they'll put it into a capsule and you take that. Standard Process, I think, has one, possibly Pure Encapsulations, I don't recall, but there's a number of different brands out there for glandular thyroid supplements. Are they the greatest thing out there? Not necessarily. Do they help? They certainly can. It's all going to be determined by the clinical determination that is made by the practitioner. If I were doing the workup, I'd want to see the labs. I would want to do a full Chinese examination. I'd want to see how your body's responding to some acupuncture. And I would probably start you on a formula from Evergreen Herbs called Thyroforte, which is a lot of spleen-boosting herbs, but in the Chinese, but in the Western physiology realm, it's going to work more on boosting thyroid function. Now, depending on what's going on with you, how long has this been happening? How long have you been struggling with the symptoms? What symptoms are you struggling with? What's going on? Often, just treating with herbs and with some vitamin D and some acupuncture, those three things are often enough to just turn that thyroid issue around and get your thyroid numbers coming up and you feeling better. Now, that said, it could also be an issue of an infection in the thyroid. Viruses, bacteria, even, and this is going to sound kind of yucky, but even a flatworm or a microscopic roundworm infection in the thyroid, they can cause some problems. And it has to be determined what's going on so that way this can be treated. Strongyloides, something like that. It has to be determined and checked out by a competent practitioner to determine what's going on. So my advice to you, Renee, would be find that competent practitioner. Do some research, do some hunting, see who's out there, see who's available. Sit down with them, interview them. Usually they have a free 10-minute consult. That might not be enough time, but sit down with them, talk to them, ask them questions. One of the questions a lot of people like to ask is, what's your success rate? Okay, well, my clinical success rate is X, Y, or Z on a particular situation. ask how they would treat. Ask how they verify labs. Ask, do you base your diagnostics off of lab work or do you base it off of your clinical findings? Basic Medicine 101 is you base your diagnostics off of your clinical findings, and your lab work usually confirms it. And if it doesn't confirm it, you go back and you verify your clinical data. So that's what a glandular is. And is it going to work? It's probably going to be helpful. But don't get cheap. Get a decent one. Spend some money on it if you're going to go that route. But don't do it until you have a practitioner to give you the green light and say, this is what I think is going on. This is how we need to treat. How quickly can you see results? Very quickly. With a thyroid, you should start seeing yourself feeling better, and you should start seeing the symptoms subsiding, I would say, within the first 2 weeks. So you don't necessarily always have to go on thyroid meds. And one of the things I'm finding is with relation to Lyme disease, so many people are put on thyroid medication when really it was a Lyme-related illness. So you want to get all of these things checked. So when Dr. Noel gets here, I want you all to say, "You're late." Okay. Do you remember? We'll hold off on the conundrum. I had a beautiful gold pen, and I can't find it. About 2 weeks out of the year, it disappears. I think it just needs a vacation. So we have Tricia in Marquette, Michigan. Tricia, you wrote, now that it's getting colder and I can't get outside much, how much vitamin D should I be taking, and what vitamin D do you like? We've gone over this in some of the past shows, but yes, now that it's getting colder, now that you're not getting outside, and now that that angle of sunlight is dipping and you're not getting as intense sunlight, you do need to start supplementing vitamin D. Best case scenario, I would say go get some blood work and have the trace nutrients level checked. See what your vitamin D level is. If it's low, then we need to supplement very high for a few weeks to a month. Depending on where it's at, you can cut your weight in half, convert it to multiply it by 1,000, and call that the number of international units that you should be taking when your vitamin D is very low and we need to get it up quickly. So in those situations, what I'll do is say the person's 100 pounds. I might give them 50,000 IUs of vitamin D for a few weeks, just to get those levels back up there, get them on the high end of the window, of the within normal limits window from the lab. And then after that, once their levels are back up to where they should be, here she is. What did I tell you? You know how boring these first 15 minutes have been?
Are you telling them about acupuncture?
I'm answering questions, lady. I'm hopping to it.
We have 45.
I'm not wasting any time here, but I did save the conundrum for you.
Perfect.
And you weren't here when I shared this information. This was in the news about 45 children being rescued by the U.S. Marshal's Office.
Heard more about that lately.
God bless the U.S. Marshals.
Yeah, more.
I was just we answered Renee's question, then I jumped down to Tricia because I figured some of these others you should be in on. And I was just talking about how to what levels of vitamin D someone should be taking. And I said, if you can, get your blood levels checked. And if you're really low, start take your weight, say you're 100 pounds, cut it in half, multiply it by 1,000, and take that number of IUs for a couple of weeks. In other words, in this case, 50,000 IUs. Mm-hmm. I know some naturopaths who would do that daily. I know some MDs that would say once a week. I'm going to say daily to every other day, depending on what your symptoms are. But once your blood levels are up, then cut back to between 15 and 24,000. And in some cases, when your levels might be okay, but your symptoms are ridiculous, still take that real bulbous dose.
Until you get back to normal.
Yeah.
I think I take about 10,000.
Wimp.
I don't feel like I'm that bad though right now.
About a week and a half ago, a switch flipped in me and I felt like I got hit by a truck.
Okay, when you were tired?
Yeah. And so I've been supplementing about 25,000 a day.
Are you feeling my energy?
I am. I'm not my poiky self.
What do you think about B12? Should we be doing that with the vitamin D to kind of...
Not while I'm treating parasites.
Okay.
Because
it feeds them?
Now, there is
They love energy drinks?
They do, actually. And isn't it amazing they have a parasite problem that's really become pronounced after everyone started drinking energy drinks?
You can sell the B vitamins, and they're like, oh, great.
There's a B supplement that I really like. It's a liposomal B complex.
Okay.
We have that available on our Wellevate site. But that one's nice because it's so bioavailable, and I've used that in years past. Since I'm in the Lyme protocol, I figured I'd hold off and
not give them a fiesta.
I do not want to give him early Cinco de Mayo. Taco Tuesday every day. So Tricia, I hope that helps. Now, it's 25 after. Do you know what that means?
Conundrum.
I shouldn't do that. That's an expensive model.
Yeah, don't do that.
I think I paid $50 for that. Last week's conundrum. Carrie, if you're watching, could you please bring us another envelope? Last week's conundrum. Do you want to open it up, or should I? Do you want the honors?
You do. It's always good when you do.
Get the jaws of life. I missed. All that to miss. Do you remember last week's conundrum?
Once you start telling me it, I will. I answered it a little bit last week, didn't I?
You did. Dr. H.Z. Gesundheit has a 27-year-old. That's just a great name. Of course, we'll probably get sued by Gesundheit Institute. Dr. H.Z. Gesundheit, now we have another count, has 27-year-old male patient who hasn't had a bowel movement for 4 days. Before that, he struggled with constipation and dry, difficult stools. His urine is dark and very little in amount. The patient also complains of feeling bloated all the time. I can't believe I ate the whole thing. Dr. Gesundheit observed the man's complexion was reddish and that his breath was terrible and foul. When he took the patient's pulses, Dr. Gesundheit smiled and said, "Ach, you poor man, you feel terrible." What did Dr. Gesundheit find in the man's pulses? What was the Chinese description in English of the man's pulses that Dr. Gesundheit probably found?
Wasn't it like weak or something like that? Weak and something else.
It would be slippery and rapid.
Okay.
Slippery.
It's what, dehydration is part of it?
Phlegm and heat.
Okay.
Dehydration could be part of it, but the yin is kind of gelling, and instead of being like water, it's now kind of more of a gel. So you get more of that slippery pulse, and that heat can cause a slippery pulse as well.
Okay. I just thought like
and that terrible foul breath
Yep.
would be more indicative of it could be just heat, but with some of these other symptoms, it could also be damp heat.
Okay. So liver backed up pretty much, like
liver's probably backed up. Some pancreas is probably backed up a little bit. He's just a
Not-
miserable case.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Now, the person who had the answer that wrote it in,
They did?
no one did. So that's 2 weeks in a row that you could have won something.
You know, I don't know the acupuncture with the pulses. But
That's okay. That's why it's a
Let's say-
conundrum.
Let's say I do know with the other stuff though. I'd be like, boy, you need to drink some water, take some magnesium.
Yeah. But that's the beautiful thing of it. You can have several answers for the same problem.
Yes.
And they may all work. Some might work better than others, but they may all work.
Mm-hmm.
But that's also one of the beautiful things about a place where you have multiple tools in the tool
Toolbox,
chest
yep.
to work from, multiple different perspectives to look at. One of the things we're trying to put together here at the Salome Center is a treatment center for Lyme disease and parasitology, where you come in, you spend a day getting examined and looked over and labs drawn and everything else by your acupuncturist, your chiropractor, your MD, your this, your that. And then we all get together and we say, this is what I think is going on. This is how I think it should be addressed. Well, what about this symptom? Well, that can be addressed in this way. But you have a team of docs working together.
Which is what it should have always been.
Which is what it should always have been. Truly integrative clinic. So that's what we're trying to produce here. But if you're interested in being part of that, you're a healthcare practitioner, let us know. If you're interested in investing in something like that, you should probably let us know too.
That's true though.
Super cool.
Super cool. I don't want to spray the water out. That would be bad. Let's see.
When I was a kid, my brother and I used to sit at the breakfast table and try to make cereal go out the other guy's nose.
Just
by
keep
getting
cracking
them
each
to
other
laugh.
up. Yeah.
What was bad was we were eating grape nuts. It really hurt.
Oh, I bet.
So,
you're gonna have some really good content then. So what are your kids gonna be for Halloween?
They're not.
They're not?
We don't do Halloween.
No.
No, we normally close the blinds, turn all the lights off, and pretend like we're not home.
Okay.
And,
I live out in the country, so there's not too many coming up with me.
well, at this point, both neighbors' kids know that they're going to be sorely disappointed if they come to our door.
Yeah.
One year we were hiding out. They knew our cars, so they came and knocked. And they just kept knocking and kept knocking. So I finally went
Really?
to the door and I said, yes. And they said, trick or treat. Well, I think we've got some carrots and some apples. Hey, you want a piece of jerky?
They probably wanted that though.
No,
That was probably good.
They didn't come back.
I'll say jerky's good.
These people are weird. We are. No, we don't. We don't do Halloween. The last time I did anything for Halloween, I was working for a big box home improvement store, and it was Halloween night, and everyone was supposed to be dressed up, and I refused. My brother was working there too, and he refused. And we kind of look alike. He's got blonde hair and a lot less of it. And so he always wears this ball cap. And we were both wearing ball caps. I wore a black one, and he wore a grayish one, a brownish gray. I always wore like a sports shirt. I always wore a button-down shirt. He wore the sports shirts. So Halloween, he wore the button-down shirt. I wore the sports shirt. We switched hats. And when HR scolded us and said, you guys were supposed to be wearing a costume, we said, we are.
Dressed up as
I'm
each other.
dressed up like my brother. He's dressed up like me.
And that was probably the best one they had.
They failed to see the humor of it.
Oh well.
So, this week's conundrum. Do you want the conundrum now? You do. Okay. I wrote this myself. This week's conundrum. Dr. Samuel I. Lumbago, known simply as joint to his colleagues from med school, watched as his patient walked into the clinic. See, I wrote this specifically for you. The patient had a bright and pale complexion, narrowed pupils, shaking hands. When Dr. S.I. Lumbago
I gotta keep track of where this is going now. We got a lot going on. We got a lot going on.
Sometimes the answers can be so obvious, and you gotta hide it in a bunch of data. Kind of like your tax forms. When Dr. S.I. Lumbago took the patient's pulses, the pulses were deep and thin and rapid. The patient complained of tightness in the chest and heart palpitations when the patient had been going through a period of great stress and anxiety. The joint, also known as S.I. Lumbago, then gave the patient an acupuncture treatment and gave the patient an herbal formula called Swanzal Rentang.
I'm never going to say that.
What was S.I. the joint lumbago treating? If you think you know the answer, you're sitting on pins and needles on this one,
That's
aren't
what
you?
he looks like. Yep.
He looks like me in the wintertime. If you think you know the answer to what Dr. S.I. the joint lumbago was treating, write it on the underside of a Charlie Russell bronze sculpture and send it to 839 Harding Street, Janesville, Wisconsin, 53545.
Can't be upset next week. Can't be upset when you don't get that.
What are the odds, you know? You're letting us down. She missed out on a 67, was it? Mustang?
Yeah.
What did we miss out on last week? I think it was just something tchotchke, like
Yeah,
a candy bar or something.
Or gum wrapper or
Gum
something.
No, you know
We're
what?
up in the States.
If you're going to be all in, you're going to have to be all in. Think of it. Think of the odds.
It's
We've
gonna be
now gone
November.
2-3 weeks in a row with no one writing in the answer to the conundrum. Both of you, Mom, Mercy. Actually, it's probably Mercy's not watching. Mom, John. One of you guys has to write it in.
Like, I gotta find that first. eBay doesn't ship that quick.
Chop, chop. Okay.
Okay.
Carrie, how we doing? Okay. Alan from Monroe, Utah. Do you know where Monroe, Utah is?
There he is. Okay. No. I know where Monroe,
I
Wisconsin
almost got
is.
killed. Well, yeah. Cheese makers. I almost got killed on the freeway just west of Monroe.
Oh, geez.
Or, I'm sorry. Yeah, Monroe, Utah. One night. I was driving along and I fell asleep. And it was around 2 a.m. And I don't know how long I was sleeping.
Oh, my gosh.
It was this long straightaway. So, you know, if you drift off. And I woke up and I was doing about maybe 35, 40 miles an hour. It was this huge herd of deer, several hundred deer all around me. And I hadn't hit a single one. And of course I slowed way down as these things are darting out in front. And
This was at night or
this was at night, about
Wow.
2 a.m. And, you know, you go from being a state of completely asleep to, and my dad was asleep and he woke up and he says, "Huh, did you fall asleep?" And I said, "Yes, I did." "You want me to drive?" "No, because you can't even see in the dark." "Well, at least I'd be awake." So then we drove to the next truck stop, which was around a bend and maybe another half hour or so to Monroe.
Wow.
So, Alan, I have been to your fair city. I have snoozed at the truck stop there. They had actually pretty good coffee.
Sometimes they do.
My doctor said I have sciatica. What is it? All I know is that it really hurts. Alan, I can tell you're a type A guy.
Get right to it.
It's a structural issue. Do you want to tackle it?
So the sciatic nerve is made out of the 5 lumbar nerves that all come together and make a big nerve that's like that, goes down the back of your leg, goes down kind of by the butt, and then there's another muscle that goes over that, the piriformis muscle. So you can have multiple areas of assault to this nerve. And depending on what you did, it could either be a lumbar nerve that irritated some of those other nerves and it's zinging down the leg, or it could be that piriformis muscle, or you did something else that your hamstring's really tight and also giving it issue. And it can go the other way too. If the nerve's irritated, usually the hamstring will get really tight.
What can Alan from Monroe, Utah do?
Go see a chiropractor and an acupuncturist. They'll get you fixed up.
Monroe's not a big place. You
Okay.
probably have to travel either. I think the nearest big place would probably be St. George, and that's a couple hours away. But there's going to be some smaller towns with some practitioners around.
It's a very common issue.
It's a common issue. And what are some self-care things that he could do to just
I
take
would
the edge
say do a little bit of moist heat kind of by the glute area. Now, by here, if you feel tension through there, do some stretching of your hamstrings.
off? Stretch!
Mm-hmm. Sometimes with that kind of stuff, when you have lower back pain or sciatic pain, when it goes down the leg, it's better to be standing, moving a little bit more than when you sit and you get really stiff. I've had that pain too, so I didn't sit the whole day. I just went shopping because that cures everything.
Ah. Huh.
Mercy. You're welcome.
So self-care for sciatica, go shopping.
Yeah, don't sit.
Well, I know a lovely truck stop in Monroe. They have some interesting curios. NASCAR themed, but you know.
Do some stretching with it. Do some moist heat over the muscle. You can do a little bit of ice if you have more of a disc issue when it's early on. If this has been something that's been lingering, because I know sciatic pain can last a long time. If it's been, 3 days and you still got it going on and you feel tense and it's just hard to move, then the moist heat's good. But if it's something like fresh, like you lifted up a wheelbarrow and you feel it zing, do ice the first 24 hours.
Don't do it after the first 24 hours, though, because that's going to end up exacerbating the problem. Now, I'm assuming it's been going on for
A while. I'm
at
guessing.
least a week or so, because you said that you've been to a doctor. We know nothing more beyond that.
Mhm.
So you can't use this information that we're giving you as the means of treatment. We're just giving you some ideas to try to take the edge off until you can get to a practitioner who can take care of you. And yes, it does really hurt, and it can take your breath, and it can make it miserable to walk. It can make it miserable to sit. It can even make it miserable to lay down, depending on where
And
it's at.
sometimes they'll prescribe muscle relaxers that really doesn't touch it because it's not a muscle issue with this completely. It's
Yeah.
a nerve issue because it's the sciatic nerve.
I have seen them give prednisone and
Different steroids.
muscle relaxers.
Sometimes
Which-
that will help.
Within the guidelines of that modality makes sense.
Mhm.
And sometimes that will help. One of the things that you can do is have somebody, say it's in your right glute, your right rear end, not your wrong rear end, but your right rear end. And he's not even in his right mind, but he's in his right rear end. Anyway, if it's on the right side, have somebody go up onto your right shoulder blade and just kind of feel around with their fingers for the spots that really hurt. And then have them go in there and just start rubbing on it really good and hard. And it's not pleasant. It can be painful. And you might even end up, if they do it wrong, a little bruised. But that should cause that glute to loosen up a little bit. If you were in this clinic, you came in with sciatica and described as pain right there in the glute, I typically will go to the scapula, and that
You'll
takes
go on
care
the
of
same
it.
side or the opposite though.
I go, ipsilateral.
Okay.
Handle same side.
Okay.
And what you'll typically see is when the acupuncture needles are installed in a situation like that, the pain is usually reduced by about 50 to 80%.
I'll say acupuncture seems a lot of problems that hang around for a while. Acupuncture will hit the pain.
Yeah.
Like I'll try to work on the structural problem, but it doesn't always take the pain away.
And that's where, if
It's
you
good to
can
have
do the
both.
acupuncture first
Mm-hmm.
and then do the chiropractor and then follow up in a day or so with more acupuncture
Mm-hmm.
and just alternate,
Yeah.
because the acupuncture is going to loosen the tissues that are holding the hard tissue in place.
It makes it easier for the adjustment to take place than fighting those tissues to get through it. And then you
Yeah.
have more irritation.
So, Tina in Seguin, Texas. I hope I said that right, because you Texans are usually pretty irritable when we mispronounce your towns.
Oh man, what's with how much is too much coffee? I drink 1 pot of coffee in the morning before work, 1 pot at work in the morning, 1 pot in the afternoon, and some at dinner. My sleep's fine. My family tells me this is too much. How much is too much coffee? Didn't we have one not long ago?
We had one not long ago.
That one was in Texas as well. Was
Evidently, someone's not watching the old episodes. Maybe we need to get on the WB network or something. Sell our old reruns. That's not coffee. Don't judge me.
Is that dandelion?
That's dandelion with a little bit of maple syrup.
Dandy
Swell.
blend. Okay,
So is this too much coffee? Yes. Next, Bob in Muncie. No, that's way too much. Solomon
said 3
said,
pots, over 3 pots.
Yeah, Solomon said moderation in all things. If you're living on 3 pots a day, that's way too much. If you cut it back to 1 pot a day, be proud of yourself. Get it down. 2-3 cups of coffee in the morning is
That's
fine.
way too much caffeine. Caffeine's still a drug.
Listen to Betty Ford.
Well, you have to do that much of it.
Yeah.
It's not good. It's not good for any of the reproductive organs.
If you need some flavor and the heat, if that's what you're going after, then cut your coffee in half. Don't use as much coffee in your water. Make it super weak, and then cut the coffee in half with decaf. But make sure it's organic, because coffee is one of the most polluted foods out there.
Yep.
Or go to Dandy Blend and some chicory roots, some alternatives. You're going to have a headache. You're going to feel schleppy when you start weaning yourself down.
Mm-hmm.
But that's called withdrawals, because you're coming down off of a drug. There's acupuncture protocols that can help with that. I'm sure you guys have stuff that can be done to help with that. But yes, you are an addict, and admitting you have a problem is the first step to recovery, or so we're told.
It
doesn't matter that your sleep is fine.
No.
Something's
You're so used
give.
to it now. You probably worked your way up to 3+ pots.
So your family's correct, and they're telling you this because they love you. You're nuts. You need to cut back. It'd be interesting to know what
there's enough people that do this, though.
Well, we've had 2 within the last month, right?
Yeah, well, those old guys that like to sit around and drink coffee all day and smoke cigarettes. It's like a way guys like to spend their days sometimes.
I knew an old plumber in Maine who smoked cigarettes and drank coffee
all day long.
That's all he did.
Mm-hmm.
He had a piece of toast and an egg for breakfast, and he might have a little bit of soup at dinner time. But all day long, never drank water, never drank alcohol or anything else, just coffee and cigarettes. And he was in his 80s, dying of emphysema, but he was in his 80s. It's one of those things where the genes on that man were just incredible genetics, and you kind of wonder how physiologically he wouldn't have been had he not been abusing his body all his life.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
That's right.
So, Bobby, Big Bobby, in Muncie, Indiana. Do you want to read that one?
Sure.
You're the deer hunter.
I
And I don't mean that as a reference to a cheesy 1970s Vietnam War movie.
You know what? I always try, but I've never succeeded yet. I like to sit outside. I used to do a lot of deer hunting, but I'm hesitant with the possibility of Lyme disease being transmitted through the deer meat. Is this a real thing, and should I be all that worried?
It's a real thing. It's a real thing. Lyme disease can be transmitted through the meat. You're going to cook the meat, and typically you cook venison well done, not medium rare. So Lyme is a bacteria.
It should be killed in
It should be killed in the cooking process. But what if, as you're processing the meat, you nick yourself?
Then the bacteria can get
Then
in.
the bacteria gets into you. You're infected. And I don't know of anybody, short of the guys that wear the really cool Kevlar gloves, that as they're cutting up the meat, doesn't nick themselves at least once. It's part of the process. So yeah, you do have the potential for, as you process the meat, undercooking the meat.
Don't eat the heart.
Just cook the heart well. That's really good.
Yeah, but you don't want to eat it raw. Some of them like to bite into it while it's still beating.
Oh,
That.
those nuts. Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that. Save it, because
I didn't say don't eat it. I said don't eat it while it's still beating.
save it and bring it home and either put it in the crock pot with some beautiful bone broth and let it just kind of stew in the bone broth for.
You like it with horseradish, don't you, and rye?
Oh, it's delicious. Or you take it and you stuff it with stuffing and you bake it and then you slice it up. Wow, is that good? Don't waste it raw. That doesn't make you any more Jeremiah Johnson, and he was eating the liver of his enemies, so there.
That's probably not good either. The filter of the
No.
body. I've never liked liver. Don't tell me it's good for me.
The French have a very interesting expression when it comes to cooking liver. They say liver must be served in heavy makeup. And you say, what is that? And they say, well, it's like an unattractive woman. She must have lots of makeup.
Yeah.
So what they're saying is,
You got to dress it up a lot.
you've got to put lots of breading on it, put lots of stuff on it, because you don't want that minerally smell when you're about to eat it. I like liver. When done right, it's delicious. Is it something I want to live on exclusively? Of course not. But liver waste, a nice liver waste with a sweet onion on some rye bread. My Semitic roots are showing. Is good stuff. So that was Bobby.
Okay.
Do we want to go to Wyoming or do we want to go to Mississippi?
Mississippi.
Oh, Mississippi. Oh, I see. I messed it up. Can you do it?
Mississippi.
She did it!
Oh no.
What did she win? Nothing.
Nothing. I was late.
We're low budget. We're low budget, but we have high expectations. Okay.
Okay.
Kelly in Ovette, Mississippi. I have been having severe leg cramps at night. Key point right there. My acupuncturist says I need to take magnesium, and I'm taking so much that it's giving me loose stools. Help!
You're just taking a tad too much that it's going overboard. But you're probably close to the right dose.
It's probably not just a magnesium issue. It's probably a potassium issue. It's probably a sodium issue. It could be
Hydration.
calcium. It could be hydration. It's an electrolyte issue is what's going on, because all of these things are electrolytes. So in Chinese medicine, we'd say, oh, wait a minute. It's only happening at night, huh? So that's a yin deficiency issue. So where at in the leg are these things happening? Is it happening in the back of the calf muscle, in the
Hamstring.
ham? Thank you. In the hamstring. I'm a Jew. I'm uncomfortable saying ham. It's happening in the gastroc, the hamstring. Where is it happening? Which side of the muscle is it happening? All of these things are significant. You're probably taking too much magnesium. What else can you do?
You ever heard of magnesium oil? I was going to make up some magnesium cream because I heard that the oil is a little bit drying for the skin. But if you put it with, I think, shea and coconut, that it's pretty nice.
Beautiful. Yeah. There's magnesium lotions.
Because it's magnesium chloride, I believe. And then all the oil is you dilute it with the water.
Mhm.
And then you can, that's where you get the oil. And then you can make the cream from there.
You need an emulsifier. Glycerin's often used, soy lecithin's often used. Borax works really well, but you have to be very, very specific with the chemistry.
Okay.
Now you can go out and make yourself some cream.
So that'll hit the spot.
Put that on topically.
Mm-hmm.
You can buy this stuff. You can make it. If you're an enterprising young person like Dr. Noel here, you can go out and get the raw ingredients and make your own and slap it in a bottle with the likeness of Dom DeLuise and sell it out there on eBay.
I just like to put it on the page and say, "Isn't that nice? Wouldn't you like to buy some?"
It works really well.
Especially when you got your thumb dug right into their upper trap. Usually that seals the deal.
But that also begs the question, because I have patients who will use CBD lotions for something like this.
I don't do as much with the CBD stuff.
I don't necessarily like CBD stuff, but I do know people that use it, and they will say it works pretty good for the cramping. Thai Fu oil, I'm told, works really well.
I've never heard of that one either.
There's a number of options out there, but the first thing would be start looking at your electrolytes. Manage your electrolyte levels. Make sure you're hydrated. Make sure you're stretching your muscles out throughout the day. Get those muscles stretched out.
What shoes are you wearing? Are you wearing shoes that are worn out, that you're working one side of your leg more than the other? Then maybe you're having a little bit more issue on the inside of the calf.
Yeah.
Could be a lot of different things.
And maybe you need to soak in Epsom salts before bed.
Oh man, that's awesome.
It's good stuff.
When I do that, pretty much the day's shot at that point. Like, you got to do that at the end of the night because you don't want to do anything else.
Dr. Noel's drooling again.
Oh, love it.
Time to put her to bed.
There's a green tea one that they sell. That one's
green
nice.
Tea and
green tea, Epsom salt.
Epsom salt
makes the water a little green. It's like you're in the swamp. Mm-hmm.
that just,
it smells good.
Are there little lily pads and, and duckweed that you can put in the tub with it?
No, just smells good.
Burn it. What's going on with Dr. Noel? She's taking her swamp soap again. Burn it.
Trademark.
She's pretending she's a bullfrog.
Off to Cheyenne, Wyoming.
I love Cheyenne. Cheyenne is a beautiful town. Ed in Cheyenne, Wyoming. Do you want to read this or do you want me to?
You can read this one. Oh.
Thank you for your show. I always enjoy the humor and the great knowledge that you guys share. Mom would be so proud, wouldn't she? She's off now. She missed it! Ed, she missed it! And we realize that most of you people watch these broadcasts after the fact because it's during the workday. So you guys watch it after the fact. That's fine. If you want to answer a conundrum, just email your answer in, or better yet, mail it in, like we had said, or just get a hold of us in any one of these different ways. So Ed says, I have a problem where I keep twisting my ankle. I sprained it about a year ago and it keeps twisting and spraining. My doctor says that this is just because it has never healed properly. But I wonder if there's something else that I could be doing since my shoulders ache after work and they sometimes feel like they pop out. I just feel like my ligaments are turning into bungee cords. That's kind of an interesting statement right there.
Yeah, because it's not just the ankle, it's systemic.
And that should be a real tell for your doctor that there is something more going on.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if this were just limited to the ankle, you probably have stretched that ligament out so much that it's no longer stabilizing, in which case you probably need some physical therapy.
Mm-hmm.
In the meantime, braces would probably help. Not these braces, but an ankle brace.
Until you could strengthen the muscles surrounding it.
Yeah. But
shoulders, you didn't really do anything that you told us of.
But if you're feeling like your ligaments are loose all over the place and aren't holding things and stabilized anymore, and it's becoming worse, now we have a pattern going. And where there's a pattern, there's a problem. Do we have enough to make a diagnosis here? No, we do not. I would say give us a call, 608-314-8791, and make an appointment for some telemedicine where we can sit down with you and go through this and see what might be going on. One of the things that might be going on is chronic infection. A Babesia, a Bartonella issue. You guys don't have a lot of Lyme in Wyoming. There's Lyme there, but it's not as prevalent as here. Excuse me. So it is prevalent, or it is present. It might be a Lyme situation because you do see this kind of thing in Lyme disease, where the ligaments feel like they're stretching and in fact they are getting slack. The other thing is, are you around Roundup? Are you a farmer and you're around Roundup ready crops? Because that glyphosate takes the place of the glycine in the collagen production, and things tear much easier. So there's a number of questions that we would need to ask before we could point you in a direction.
Something's not right here.
Something's rotten in the state of Denmark. Yep, the Dutch just hung up. So Ed, you need to get that checked out, and feel free to give us a call, and we'll
figure it out.
We'll be happy to start delving into that with you. In fact, Ed, if you want to give us a call and set that up, I'll donate that first phone conference with you. That'll be on me, so we can just get you some answers, or at least get you going in a direction. So, do you have any news that you want to share? Anything cool that you?
When we were talking before, I had something that popped in my head, but I lost it. It went right.
Excuse me.
We're going to be into November next week. Next week, Tuesday, it's going to be the election.
Yes.
Now, do you have to register to vote in the state of Wisconsin?
I think you can register at the poll.
That's what I thought. I didn't think you had to go into the DMV and do all that. I thought that was just,
Yeah, I've always just gone straight to the poll and showed them my ID, whether they asked or not, and filled everything out. What ticks me off is where I live, we don't have early voting.
Really?
Yeah. They would give you an absentee ballot. And that, I think, is over. So I was hoping to do early voting, but they're going to require us to go in on that Tuesday, which is fine. I'll be there.
I plan on it with mine. I'm kind of an interesting, I think it's always where you pay your taxes, right? That's the one it goes to. Because it's like where we pay our taxes is different than what's actually on the postal address.
Not necessarily, because I am now considered part of Janesville City. They annexed us a couple years ago.
Okay.
but where we vote is Janesville Township.
Okay, so you kind of got the same thing too then.
Yeah. So we pay our
I'm gonna have
taxes
to
in the
ask them.
city, but we go to township.
Yeah, because I live, Neosho is my address, but it's
You were almost a
of,
Neosho today.
Township of Ashpin. I planned on it. But yeah, that goes with it. No show.
1, 2, 3. You guys can't see this, but behind you are 3 locomotive engines cruising through. So yes,
That will be next week.
that will be next week. So
I will be here. I blocked it.
make sure that there's too much at stake. Make sure you get out there and you vote. And my goodness, so important.
Yes, it is.
Do you know there are people that gave their lives so that you could go and vote? It's crazy. And we're so haphazard about it. We're so apathetic about it. There are people, when I was a youngin', you'd hear people in the Soviet Union and East Germany that would risk their lives trying to get out.
Yeah.
So that they could be a citizen and
Well,
have
that Berlin Wall
have that
fell,
part.
I think, right before I was born. That had been a little over 30 years.
youngin'.
I came when the getting was good.
Yeah.
When was that? Was that 89? 88? I don't think it was 90, was it? I was born at the end of 90, though, so it could have been.
I would have to Google it.
I know it was right before I was born, though.
Yeah, I think it was junior high, so that would have been late 80s, early 90s. I just remember the Mikhail Gorbachev, the man with the birthmark on his forehead.
It happens.
I remember the Iceland summit where President Reagan walked out to shake his hand, and they planned the optics of that so perfectly as to where Reagan looked like he was in complete control and was taller, and Gorbachev was small and wearing his big frumpy coat. And I always thought that was fascinating. Anyway, you've now wasted a perfectly good hour with us chatting with the docs. And I appreciate it. I'm sorry for the slow intro.
Sorry, guys, that I didn't come till later. It'll be better next time.
Yeah, you will do better next time. Make me have to carry the show. I tell you what, I can't do that. I'm going to have a meltdown because of this.
Vote next week.
Yes. This is the conundrum. Carrie's bringing me an envelope. This will get sealed up, and we'll answer it next week. So until next week, happy trails to you until we meet again. Sing it with me.
Happy
trails to
to
you. Keep smiling until then.